Thank you for coming. This is the start of a series of talk on Vashista Yoga. Some of the questions you should be able to ask yourself is, well, who was Vashista? What does he have to do with yoga? And why should I be interested? Those are good questions. Well, Vashista was the son of the creator of this universe. He was a mind-born son. In other words, the creator didn't need someone else to interact with to produce Vashista. So Vashista was very long-lived. There's quite a bit of information about him, but we're not going to go into that now. What's important about him and Vashista's yoga? Yoga is the process that you enter into to become realized. And so this is a mental process mostly. And the reason Vashista is talking about yoga is to enlighten Rama, an avatar. So, for you people that don't know, an avatar means descent from heaven to earth, essentially. And so this is an enlightened being that has no need to come to earth. So they choose this voluntarily. Well, let's go back. Is Vashista an enlightened being? Well, what Vashista says about himself in the beginning of Vashista's yoga, before he starts teaching Rama about self-realization, he said that the creator, when he created Vashista, is that he covered up, the creator covered up Vashista's inner light. And Vashista says that he was very unhappy. And he went and asked his father, the creator, and says, well, how come I'm so unhappy? And because he was unhappy, and nothing he seemed to do seemed to make any difference. And so he became lazy and not willing to do anything. So he went and he talked to his father. And this is what I'm going to get to read. This is my tattered copy of Vashista's Yoga. It shows you I still read it every day. I think I've read this whole thing through at least 5 or 6 times. And one of the things that you learn about reading through this is that as things unfold in your consciousness, you see different things in this book every time. I still read it quite a bit. Here's what Vashista says about his enlightenment and such. The Creator saw that all living beings in the universe were subject to disease and death, to pain and suffering. In his heart there arose compassion, and he sought to lay down a path that might lead living beings away from all this suffering. He thereupon instituted centers of pilgrimage and noble virtues like austerity, charity, truthfulness, and righteous conduct. But all these things were inadequate. They could bestow only temporary relief from suffering on people and not final liberation from sorrow. So because he recognized that these weren't enough, the Creator brought Vashista into being. Vashista says, he drew me to himself and drew the veil of ignorance over my heart. Instantly I forgot my identity and my self-nature. I was miserable. I begged of Rama, the Creator, my own Father, to show me the way out of this misery. Sunk in my misery, I was unable and unwilling to do anything, and I remained lazy and inactive. And this is true of a lot of people that experience somebody who had the state of samadhi or had the state of samadhi in a previous life. And there's the old saying, after they've seen Puri, you can't keep them down on the farm anymore. So, regular life, quote unquote, seems to be useless. Okay? So he asked his father, which he thought was a very important question. In response to my prayer, that my father revealed to me the true knowledge which instantly dispelled the veil of ignorance that he himself had spread over me. The Creator then said to me, my son, I veiled the knowledge and revealed it to you so you may experience the glory of realization. For only then will you be able to understand the travail of ignorant beings and to help them. So that means that a realized person knows exactly what an unrealized person is going through. Okay. So that this is the Creator, and some people may actually have had a veiling from their previous high spiritual life for the same reason. Okay. Rama, Vashista says, equipped with this knowledge I am here, and I will continue to be here till the end of creation. Well, if that's true, you should be able to contact Vashista, because he's here somewhere. And sometimes, if you're interested, we can talk about lucid dreaming sometime in the future. Okay, so Vashista goes on to talk about who should participate in this yoga that he's going to impart to Rama. And what he says is, there is somebody amongst the audience who is ripe to understand completely the process of self-realization. And he goes into the first chapter and talks about self-effort, how everything is self-effort. So I'm not going to be in this talking about the book itself, which you can read. You know, go to Amazon, they have used copies. I didn't bother to check the price, but you can get them. I recommend Venkatesananda's. I've seen a couple of different commentaries. What Venkatesh did was to shrink it all down to what he thought was the essential things, the things that you needed to know in order to become realized. He didn't talk about the flowery description of the mountains in the springtime or any of that. he mentions that that there are there, but so he wants you somehow to become aware of there's more in Vashista's yoga than what he's commenting on. So he says on page 31, "O Rama, if you want to free yourself from the sorrow of samsara," and then he puts in quotes, "repetitive history, so from life to life you revisit things. Receive the wholesome instructions of sages like me and be free." Okay, so he's talking about that there's a promise here. If you study and imbibe Vashista's yoga, you're going to be free. Free from what? Free from sorrow, what the Buddhists talk about. Okay? You become detached and become the observer of the Leela, not a participant of the dance. Leela means dance. There is a state within yourself, okay, Vashista clearly says veiled, your self-nature. Your self-nature is covered up. When people become realized, they say, oh, I always had that inner light inside me. Now it's uncovered. Okay. And it will go through this about the self-effort again. But so he's talking about, again, the person that should read this. This is not for somebody that says, okay, I want to find out how to make my life better here. I'm not interested in thinking about going beyond this. It's enough for me. Okay, there are paths that are available to you. So my recommendation to you, like Vashista, don't spend your time on this if you don't want samadhi and self-realization. Because that's what you're going to get. And so in order to get samadhi and self-realization, you have to give up things. Okay? It's a process of taking things away, not adding to. Now, the people that teach this also are aware of these ways that you can get, because every true religion promises four things. It promises wealth, enough wealth. It promises that you'll find love. Okay, love of a wife, love of a partner, love of kids, parents and grandparents. Okay, a right way of living. And finally, to have realization or moksha. Okay, so the guy that knows this book also knows those other three. So you should be specific in what you're asking from that person. Vashista, so I'm just reading parts here. In order to cross this formidable ocean of samsara, again he says repetitive history, one should resort to that which is eternal and unchanging. He alone is best among men whose minds rest in the eternal, and is therefore fully self-controlled and at peace. He sees that pleasure and pain chase and cancel each other out. And in that wisdom there is self-control and peace. So if you finally learn that when something good happens, in a little while something negative will come along and cancel that out. So if you know that's going to happen, why would you be excited about getting something you want? Because eventually it's going to go. So he talks about self-control. Okay, he talks about, so we're into the first chapter now on self-effort. And what you see in the book, that there is a lot of very dense reading in here. Okay. They in whom so let me just read one paragraph here to show you the denseness of this. They in whom the spirit of inquiry is ever awake illumine the world. Enlighten all who come in contact with them. Dispel the ghost created by an ignorant mind. Ghost created by an ignorant mind? Well, yeah. We're not going to talk about it. And realize the falsity of sense pleasures and their objects. O Rama, in the light of inquiry, there is realization of the eternal and unchanging reality. This is the supreme. With it, one does not long for any other gain, nor does one spurn anything. He is free from delusion, attachment. He is not inactive, nor does he get drowned in action. He lives and functions in this world, and at the end of a natural lifespan, he reaches the blissful state of total freedom. Okay. Let's talk about the 4 gates of liberation. Okay, the 4 gates of liberation are self-control, the spirit of inquiry, contentment, and good company. The wise seeker should diligently cultivate the friendship of these, or at least one of them. So he talks about inquiry, self-control, okay? He who, even while hearing, touching, seeing, smelling, and tasting what is regarded as pleasant, is neither elated nor depressed. He is self-controlled. Inquiry, the second gatekeeper, should be undertaken by an intelligence that has been purified by a close study of the scripture. And this inquiry should be unbroken. Okay. In the light of the inquiry, there is realization of the eternal and unchanging reality. Again, I'm repeating it. Contentment. Okay. To renounce all cravings for what is not obtained, unsought, and to be satisfied with what comes unsought. Well, that's a powerful statement. Okay. Well, if you've got a good job and you're making money, should you strive to become a millionaire? Well, you can strive, but you won't find the self. So there is this whole balancing act that has to be learned. To be content with what you do and get is a hard thing to practice. The last gatekeeper is satsanga. The company of the wise, holy, and enlightened persons is yet another gatekeeper to liberation. Satsanga enlarges one's intelligence, destroys one's ignorance and one's psychological distress. Whatever be the cost, however difficult it may be, whatever obstacles may stand in its way, satsanga should never be neglected. For satsanga alone is one's light on the path of life. Satsanga is deed superior to all forms of religious practice like charity, austerity, pilgrimage, and the performance of religious rites. Okay, so here's Vashista. He puts a plug in for himself, okay? But he does it with a good intention. One should by every means in one's power adore and serve the holy men who have realized the truth and whose heart the darkness of ignorance has been dispelled. They who, on the other hand, treat such holy men disrespectfully surely invite great suffering. Well, we won't get into that, but that's very true, and I've seen many, many cases of that. Okay, so those four. Contentment, satsanga, the spirit of inquiry, and self-control are the four surest means by which they who are drowning in this ocean of samsara, repetitive history, can be saved. Vashista says, after all this enumeration, he who is endowed with qualities I have enumerated is thus far is qualified to listen what I am about to reveal. He says to Rama, you are indeed such a qualified person, O Rama. Only he would wish to hear this who is ripe for liberation. So he's making the statement that Vashista's yoga is going to make whoever listens to it liberated. And that's true. So he talks about how long it is. The scripture is easy of comprehension as it is richly embellished with a number of interesting stories. So the stories are extremely important because they help you remember the moral and the experience. So he also says, okay, these stories that illustrate stuff or illustrate a point, but they are not to be taken literally. Just like a parable in the Bible, it has limitations. Parables have only one purpose, to enable the listener to arrive at the truth. So parables aren't the truth completely. They point to and they lead you to the truth. The realization of truth is so vital that any reasonable method used is justified, though the parables themselves may be fictitious. Okay, so it says, okay. Just as movement is inherent in earth, manifestation is inherent in the experiencing intelligence. O Rama, he concludes with this thing on self-effort, till such time as this wisdom rises directly in you, take recourse to the knowledge transmitted by the great teachers. When you receive such knowledge from the great teachers, your behavior will mirror theirs. And when thus you grow in their virtuous qualities, your wisdom will unfold within you. Wisdom and emulation of the noble behavior of the holy ones thrive on each other. Thank you.